Howdy, folks, and welcome to Moose Podcast 300. Yeah, I should have a little something going off, little bells or explosions from 4th of July or something. Podcast number 300. 6 years later, I'm still podcasting, haven't missed a single week. Really? Wow. And thankfully, you are here to listen to me ramble on about this, that, or the other. So I want to thank you ever so much for stopping by. Now, kind of in tune with today's theme. This past week, I had a giggle in my head, and I said, "Hey, what about Spotify?" And I thought I'd go and do Spotify, and I see there's only 10 episodes. The last 10 episodes are actually posted. Talking to a friend, and it seemed that way for iTunes and Amazon, and I was like, I know it was working once. Well, anyway, I changed that. So now you go to any Amazon or iTunes or Spotify, those guys, you'll see all 300 episodes are now listed. Yay! So, with time, things do happen. But I want to thank you for sticking with me and checking things out. I also want to thank my good friend at Bedford Camera, bedfords.com. Hey, these guys this past week have really been cranking lots of stuff going out. Great prices. Somehow they're managed to hold the prices. God bless them. And of course, you mentioned the old Moose. You'll get that 5% off, as well as for most states, no sales tax and free shipping for over $99. Great gear, great advice, great people. Thank you, Bedfords.com, for sponsoring the Moose Podcast. Well, I'm going to get right into episode 300. You'll make it. You'll make it. It's kind of like this morning. I woke up and came to the office to record the podcast, and I'm sitting there and there's no record button to start or stop the record. Yeah, I'd already done my hardware settings in Audition and hit the R button. It was red, but the actual, play and stop record button wasn't present. And I'm going to myself, what did I do now? And I'm not an Audition wizard by any stretch of the imagination. And I'm looking, and all of a sudden I see out the window the glow come. And we've had some really great thunderstorms the past few days. Had nickel-sized hail yesterday, and so I'm looking. I go, and grab the Z9, and I run out and run up the back slope of the ranch, and sat there and shot away. And then I came back, and I was like, "Oh man, I gotta fix this." And then I realized that I had somehow inadvertently clicked the default workspace rather than the edit audio and video. And as soon as I did, I had my record button back. You'll make it. You'll make it. Had a couple conversations with photographers this week, from emails to Zoom, and it just, there's so much going on in the world, and photography and the industry and in gear. Sometimes it could just seem overwhelming. And it's just like, sometimes the odds seem to be stacked against us, and you'll just wonder, will I make it? Will I get there? As if there is a defined there, right? That you could, Google, Google and say, where is there? There is a different place for all of us, depending on what you want to do. Thinking back, 300 podcasts, going back 6 years. I remember a number of things that were in my head 6 years ago, wondering if I'll ever get there, I'll make it. Back 6 years ago, Sharon and I were in the process of looking at selling a house and moving. and wonder if will ever make it to Montana because I've been trying since '95 basically to finish the migration, and I made it. There some other projects that I was doing back then, and I was really looking forward to their completion, and they never got completed. There is, that is kind of the process. I remember, especially, 6 years ago, my trying to master, last, that's not the right word. I must just say, get familiar with, no, I'm going to say, get comfortable with Premiere and video auditing and editing, I should say. And yeah, I'm not there yet. Still, some basic things like color management and video are just perplexing as heck to me. But I know at some point, I'll make it. You'll make it. The one of the conversations was with somebody who has a Z9, and I think they're coming from a D5. I don't think they got the D6. But anyway, they were really challenged by the autofocus. And they've read how amazing the autofocus is, the Z9. They had seen and read and gone through my Z9 information on the website. Then they saw that the Z9 had a firmware update to 2.1 this past week. They have a Z9. They've had it for a few months. And the autofocus was just driving them nuts because they weren't getting what they felt was the same performance out of it as I was saying or others were saying. And they're just, frustrated. And so we talked a little bit about it. And there's the one thing that, the Z9, it does have amazing autofocus. And with the firmware, yeah, it when it comes to critters, it's the only thing I've worked the last few days with the upgrade. Yeah, I can see an actual speed up or quickness to it that wasn't there. That really, really is working well with my house friends. And so I'm trying to express and talk to them about it, and it would seem, tying into another conversation I had, that a lot of photographers, they give it a try, the Z9 autofocus. It doesn't work the way they perceive or they've read it should work. And so they go back and they fall back on what was working in other camera bodies, in this case, the D5 for this other conversation. And well, it's in a way, you're comparing apples and oranges, even though they're both under the Nikon umbrella. And he went back to their D5 habits and things were working, but they're like, I bought the Z9. Why am I not getting? And it turned out, and it seems to be kind of universal, it would seem, that he wasn't actually telling the camera where to focus, which is, perhaps something that we're leaving out in our education. If you are in, for example, 3D and the box appears, and there is a number of boxes that appear, you have to take the gray box and move it to the subject. And then once you do that and and activate the autofocus, either through the shutter release or the back button, then the camera does its magic. But a lot of people, it would appear, hoping that telepathically the camera knows exactly where you, the photographer, want the focus to be. Not there yet. It might be coming, but right now you have to tell the camera where you want to focus. So you got to take the joystick, you got to move it around, and you've got to tell that camera where the subject is you want to focus on. Then it does its magic. And once I relayed that to my friend moved up from the D5, day later he goes, wow, this is amazing. You'll make it. Time is this amazing thing for photography that we tend not to give ourselves. But, it's not just photography. When we moved in the ranch a number of years ago, UPS delivered this big area rug and took delivery of it. And I thought, oh, Sharon must have ordered it. Cool. And then Sharon said, no, I didn't order it. And we looked close and we saw it was a misdelivery. It was supposed to be for our neighbor. So I called up Jack and said, hey, your rug's here. And he came over and we started talking, and actually was our first intros to each other. Anyway, talking about, this, that, and the other that we want to get done on the house. And he said, let me give you a piece of advice that I, came across when I first moved here into Montana. And he said, don't get your panties in a wad to get it all done instantly. He said, it will get done, and just give yourself time. And it was great advice because I was really, had a ton of things I wanted to do, and there was just not enough hours in a year to get it done. It kind of applies to photography as well. You will make it. You'll get there, and the question is the timing of it. How soon will you get there, and more importantly, how well will you get there? And when you get there, will you retain everything from your journey to that point? And I think that's really, really important to understand. Here I am at podcast 300. And when I started out, a number of people were doing podcasts. I was kind of late to the game. And the vast majority of those podcasters have faded away. They're gone. And is it because they lost interest? They lost content? They lost listeners? Any one of those combinations? That's I've mentioned that before in other podcasts, why that is, why, those things fade. And yet, I wondered if it would happen to me, yet here I am, number 300. You'll make it. Photography, since it is such a personal expression of how we see and, more importantly, feel the world, it sometimes feels like we're making no progress. And in large part, it has nothing to do with the camera. And it has nothing to do with the lens. It has nothing to do with exposure or knowing how to finish the file. No, a lot of time that progress seems slow is because of us, the person driving the camera. The gear, without our technique, our passion, is just a paperweight. I'm looking at the Z9 sitting here on my desk right now that I just came back in from shooting the sunrise, and it's just sitting there. It's not taking pictures. It's not changing the world. It's not telling any stories. It's literally just a paperweight until I pick it up and run outside and photograph that sunrise. Is two things happening. One, the camera is working its magic. And two, am I expressing the wonders I'm seeing through that tool? And if at times your photography doesn't seem to be moving forward, it could be not because of the camera, but because of where you're at. And it's important to understand that there are times where the photograph's just not going to happen. And there's other times it just can't help but happen. And it has to do with, more than anything else, is the passion you put into that click. Everything from, excited about the gear itself to the moment to the story you're going to share. And you got to give yourself a break when those times it doesn't happen, and give yourself a pat on the back the times it does. Because when it does, you've made it. And I've talked about this before. The problem is there's just no finish line. There's no applause. There's nothing that says, you are here. You've done it. It comes from inside, and that's really hard sometimes to actually pat ourselves on the back and say, I've made it. You just got to have the faith that if a klutz like me can be doing this thing for over 40 years, and I still quest that, you'll make it, that it's there for you as well. And you just must, gotta give yourself that time. And whatever you're doing, whatever it is you're doing. And there's thankfully, so many things that we are all involved in that can at times distract us from the elements of the world that seem to be going just cuckoo. To the quiet times, we can grab that camera and make sense of our world for ourselves with a photograph that we share. So I want to thank you for sticking with me. I know there's a core group of you that have been there since podcast 1, and I hear from you guys basically every week. And I thank you. I thank you for retweeting and resharing the podcast. But just remember to tell yourself and everybody around you, you'll make it. You guys have a great week as summer cranks along. And remember to make every click your story.